Ooh, that's a hot mug, guy.
I still cannot believe that in my lifetime, release-wise, I have seen 3 iterations of Batman, 3 iterations of Spider-Man, and now 3 iterations of Superman. James Gunn has started his DC universe with Superman, and I'll have to say that I'm actually kind of impressed. There are a lot of factors that go into this movie in terms of the scale and the issues, and obviously the precedent that it sets. Whether you like the Snyder films or not, that entire saga was so poorly handled. A lot of people have that initial notion going into this film. A lot of people have worries that it's not going to be as good as Zach Snyder's. Other people argue that Zach Snyder never knew what he was doing. Out of all the ones that have come before it, Bryan Singer's was definitely akin to that of Christopher Reeve's movies. Zack Snyder's was his version. James Gunn is a guy who has read the comics. He was able to make one of the most off-brand, out-of-this-world literal, but also very intuitive and very fun to watch superhero films. And even then, they weren't really superheroes, right? They were just a band of scoundrels. And this is the first time he's actually done a superhero movie. And something that I was quite excited for when he started this movie is he showed that one of the things that he's basing it on is All-Star Superman, which is probably one of the best stories of Superman ever done. And this film follows that story in sort of structure, if that, but not to the full extent. For those of you who know the comic, you'll understand why. But is the movie good? I would say yes. I feel that David Cornsweet is fantastic as Superman. He gives a level of humanity to him that is somewhat kind of lacked. I've always liked Christopher Reeve's version of Superman. He has that stoicism that I felt was really translated over into the animated series. The animated series is actually kind of one of the Supermans that I would say is the one that I know and breathe. With David, he is able to add this level of humility to Superman, because that's something that everyone has always had the major complaint about, is that Superman never loses.
Are you sure about that?
Give James Gunn credit, he starts him off with losing. I thought he was really good as Superman. He's obviously Superman a lot more in this movie than he is as Clark Kent. I think he is Clark Kent for maybe 2 full scenes and that's it. The rest of it, he's Superman, which we saw that with the Batman. That was great. I know there were some people who had complaints that Bruce Wayne wasn't really in it, but like that's, at this stage, that doesn't matter. And something else that Gunn does is he doesn't really hold your hand with this. Cosmonaut Variety Hour made a comparison to this being like the first Avengers movie in terms of that. If you really don't know what's going on, it's not really going to help. This is basing itself off of knowledge of the comics, knowledge of previous iterations of Superman, of superheroes in general. That is the catalyst of this. You are in this ride because while I would say the plot structure is pretty standard, it's actually, if anything, it's stuff you've seen before. It's not a very complicated plot, but because of the non-complicated plot, he's able to stuff in so many characters. Are all these characters as properly developed as you would like? Not entirely. Maybe there's some that are just like, okay, you're there, I guess. But even the very short scenes that you get with the Kents, they're really impactful. The short scenes that you get with Jimmy Olsen, pretty funny, pretty good. That also ties into the humor of this movie, and Jeremy Jahns did have a pretty good criticism of this movie, and that is with all the emotional hits that happen in this movie, they are almost always followed by comedic relief, as though Gunn can't help but make sure you laugh. And it's weird because he was able to do that with Guardians 3. Fuck, you bawled your eyes out about a goddamn CG raccoon. The fact that he gets so close to giving you some of those moments between Superman and his parents, Superman and Lois, and Superman and other people, it's really, really there. And then there is usually a comedic relief that follows. I don't know if that was really necessary. It doesn't ruin it as much as Jeremy says it does, at least in my opinion, but I can see it, that being your valid criticism. There is one guy I definitely want to say I really, really enjoyed, is Nicholas Hoult. I like Kevin Spacey's Lex Luthor because of his ridiculousness.
Superman will never... Wrong!
I like Gene Hackman's version of Lex Luthor because I imagine that was just Gene Hackman's actual personality coming out. Nicholas Hoult is so good. Every time he's on screen, he is so enjoyable because of his just villainous attitude, his absolute evil, calculating persona. There is maybe some moments where he gets a little bit too much. There's a shock moment, which I was quite surprised by. Again, is followed by a little bit of humor, which is like, I don't know if he needed that, but then he immediately goes back into being the vindictive Lex. But there's a point at the end of the movie where he kind of just explains away his plan. And I kind of get it because that is something from the comics, but it just felt a little bit forced in. Also want to give credit where credit is due. Rachel Brosnahan is fantastic as Lois Lane. In this, she's actually doing her job. She's not putting herself into ridiculous circumstances where she needs to be saved by Superman. She actually has an investigation that actually matters to the plot, unlike another movie. But the last part I should talk about is the action and the music. Music's great. John Murphy and Fleming did a great job. I think that their inclusion of the original John Williams theme and modernizing it was great. There's a few soundtrack choices in here. You feel like James Gunn's really holding back, but my friend even said that. He's like, he wanted to play so much more. He wanted to play so many more songs. But like I said, score's really good. It pops. Every time the theme comes up, it pops because it's hitting at exactly the right moment. And that is coalescing with how the film is shot. And I really enjoyed how these fight scenes were done. It had a lot of creativity. A lot of that camera work technique that was done with Guardians 3 is really put into this one, with close-up wides and keeping you in the intensity. When you're flying with Superman, you feel like you're like, when you are in the fight scenes with it, you feel the intensity of it. Superman, while not being anything different, I feel like it has all of the good parts or somewhat of the lacking parts from other Superman movies, and it just does them well. Not extremely well, not exceedingly well, but well done. I didn't go into this movie thinking it was going to be the be-all end-all, and that's kind of what I got. I feel like it is a good starting point, and that is what this was meant to be. The first movie, if it is like the banger, it's always going to be the thing that everyone goes back to. Like, Iron Man's great, but it does have its issues as well, of course, right? Batman Begins is great, but it also has its issues as well. And I feel like that's the same thing with Superman here. It's good, but it has its issues as well. It's definitely made for people who enjoy comics. It's made for people who enjoy these kind of James Gunn-esque movies. If you like James Gunn movies, you'll like this one. If you don't like James Gunn movies, I will say that this might be a little bit hard for you to swallow, but overall, I feel like this is a good start for the DCU. I hope that this comes from it. I'm really interested to learn more about these different characters. Mr. Terrific, really would like to know more about him. Nathan Fillion's dickwad, Green Lantern. But in the end, my final rating for Superman is a 5 out of 7. I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. This is a good starting point. We'll see if the money, correlates to that. I'm really interested to see more Lex Luthor as well. I'm really interested to see more David as Superman. Thought he did a really good job. Really enjoyed it. I miss Henry. I absolutely do. I don't miss the unnecessary darkness of that film sometimes, of his lineage. David's a good replacement. I'm pretty happy to say that. That was the one thing I was a little worried about. Well, those are my thoughts about this film. Very curious to see what you guys have to say. Let me know in the comments below. Let's have a discussion. Let's be nice too. I mean, even if you Snyder fans come in here and you have that, that trauma, give your thoughts. Just let's be nice, right? Like, I'll be nice to you guys if you be nice to others. Okay? Right. Talk to you later, guys.